Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 241 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices out there, and I do appreciate you making my podcast one of them. If you are enjoying this podcast, and I have to say this is one of my favorite things of the week, is when I hop on social media and people have taken a screenshot and tagged me and said, "Hey, Jen, I listened to your episode." I love that. So if you've got time to take a screenshot and share it on your socials and tag me, that would be super cool, because then I get to follow you and I get to watch your business journey, like you are potentially following me, or at least listening to my podcast. Don't forget, you can find the show notes for this podcast at all the W's, social media and marketing.com.au/241. Did you listen to last week's episode? Last week's episode was all around what's in it for me. That really hefty question that I think we all need to listen and concentrate a little bit more on when we are trying to sell our goods and services. So if you haven't listened to episode 240, that is all about thinking about that question and answering that question, what's in it for me, then head back there and have a listen. Today, I'm full of butterflies and full of excitement because it's retreat day. Yay! Today, after this goes live, I am off to my Women in Business, Not So Business retreat. It starts today with 7 other amazing women from all across Victoria and New South Wales. And I'm just so excited, full of butterflies. I just wanted to share that with you today. And like, what's exciting you today? I hope that you have something exciting going on in your life that starts today as well. Otherwise, watch my socials and watch the retreat unfold. But before I do get started, I just wanted to give a shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, BL Management Consultants at BLMC. Of course, their motto is "Your people working well," and they've been trusted partners in health and safety since 1999. But they're not just all about traditional health and safety, but they work on the entire person, both physiologically and all around their physical safety as well. And they have the key focus of people working well and thriving in the workplace. But of course, because they're all about health and safety, being compliant as well. BLMC have some courses that are coming up, including the Resilience First Aid course on the 18th and 19th of May. You can give them an email at office@blmc.com.au to inquire or to book your spot. Or you can check them out on their website and check out everything they do and how they might be able to support you in your business at allthewsblmc.com.au. Now, today, for the first time on the podcast, which is pretty cool considering I'm up to episode 241, because first don't come all that much anymore when you've done so many episodes. But today, my first is I have 3 guests on at once. I have the Time Fixers on. Their business is literally called The Time Fix. So Ildi, Kirsten and Pooja are time management specialists. And they are the Time Fix ladies. I met Kirsten through She's the Boss, which is a great networking group if you're looking for a new one to join. It's online and it's offline, which is really cool for country folk like me. But I'm really excited to chat to these ladies about, find me some more time, ladies. Is basically, my premise to them today. Their why is to help small business owners and professionals improve their relationship with their own time and empower healthy time management habits. And if that sounds like you, then maybe you should listen in. And plus, who doesn't want more time in their life? Time is one of those things that honestly has always fascinated me from an entrepreneurial and life point of view. We all have 24 hours. No one is special. No one gets more. And yet we all have very different relationships with time. And we do very different things with the time that we have. And I don't know, it's just been one of these things that's always fascinates me. And I find it pretty cool. So, anyway, I'm so delighted to be chatting to Pooja and Ildi and Kirsten today, all around fixing our time, adjusting our relationship with time. So, here's the ladies and here's our chat. Welcome, ladies. Welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to have you on. I've never had three guests at once. So, this is going to be a conversation like no others. So, thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks so much, Jen.
No, this is great. This is great. So, the business, which everyone who is watching this, because this goes on YouTube as well, can see that it's called The Time Fix. So, we are going to be talking about all things time management and time, which I don't know a person alive who doesn't want to work their time a little bit better, whether they are working or not working and just enjoying their weekends. But before we get into it, I'd really like to know from each of you a little bit about yourselves, a little bit about the business, and yeah, where it all started to where it is now. So I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourselves, if that's okay.
Awesome. I think I'll start, Jen. For those of you who are listening, my name is Ildi Ratsprosser, and I am the founder of The Time Fix. And today you will hear from Pooja Kelker and Kirsten Wilson too. They are my two business partners, and you'll hear in a bit on how we got to this trio, because that's an interesting journey on its own. But in saying that, what you need to maybe know about me is that I'm Missing the Organized Gene. I started this business about 8 years ago now, Kirsten. It's been 8 now. So it's been a while, and it started with creating a small business planner. Why? Well, I used to be in direct sales. I used to sell natural cleaning products, and I went through a divorce. And what happens when you go through a divorce, things change. and you have to adapt, and you have to pick up your game, and you suddenly realize that the things that were constant are not constant anymore. So this is why I had to up my game. And as I said, I am missing the organized gene. So I totally know what it means to be all over the shop and having to find your groove in a different way and so on. So I ended up creating a small business planner just because I was pushed to do it, because I couldn't find a decent one. And the only one that actually worked for me was coming from America, and it was always late. So I would start my year in March instead of January, and it was quite frustrating. And I had a beautiful friend who said to me, "Shut up and make one." So I did. And this is how the journey of End Planner started. But about a year into selling the planner, I realized that just because you have a good tool, it doesn't mean that you know what to do with it. And this is where the consultancy side of the business started to grow. I started to do workshops. I started to mentor on it. And I started to help people around me who were using the planner to become more productive. And in this process, I pretty much ended up reading anything and everything that fell into my hands around time management. And I started to try and apply and trial some of the different techniques. But what I realized was that as much as I tried, I was always finding myself going back to my good old self from previous life. So the big question was, why do I do this? And I think the key that I found was that I was always trying to take someone else's madness and apply it. And I tried to live up to someone else's expectations. And I was trying to live up to an image of myself that was not realistic. And this is how behavioral science crept into my little business, and it started to grow. Now, in this journey, and I'll let Kirsten say how she got into it, because she's the next missing piece from this picture. Kirsten ended up co-creating one of the variants of the planner, and we kind of did stick since to each other like Velcro. It just happened. So but this is how we really started. And then about 2 years ago, I bumped into Pooja, and Pooja just brought that missing piece into this whole picture because she does specialize in habit change.
Ah.
So I found that as much as I was able to identify the gaps and help people gather the tools and the techniques that they needed to grow, I couldn't dig deep enough to help them really make the change that will help them stick with their newfound knowledge and their newfound self-awareness around better time management and better time mindset. And this is why we started to talk about time mindset rather than time management, because I believe you can't manage time. You can only manage yourself. So Kirsten, do you want to just interject?
Absolutely.
Very wise words. Oh my goodness, very wise words. Okay, see how you go following that one up.
Well, she's a hard one to follow, so I'll do my best, Jen. But yeah, as Ildi mentioned, I came into her sphere 7+ years ago, not long after actually my daughter was born. And what happened was I started my own business. I had a multi-level marketing networking business as well, and we bumped into each other. And when Ildi was discussing how to use her planner, I thought, what is this method? What is this madness about color coding and allocating things that should be for family time and allocating things that should be for business and allocating time for making connections and networking? And I was so fascinated by it because my past history growing up, I had journals and journals and journals of writing things all throughout my childhood. And then traveling in the later years into my early adulthood and kept documenting things. So I was a huge fan of already putting pen to paper anyway. That was something I really loved doing. But when there's a method and there's a plan and you can follow that system, well, that's a whole new level. So I think that's why I was really attracted to what Ildi was offering. And then a year into using her planner, I said to her, we need to make one together. I have a huge community that really needs to understand the same methodology. And so what can we do? And then not long after, we created one for a wellness community. And then from there, it was, I think, a natural fruition of things evolving and things developing into the workshops. And it was the blueprint method to how to use your planner, and it just took off from there. And so as Ildi mentioned, it evolved with us studying and coming across a number of different people offering different types of behavioural science and really understanding the method behind the behaviour side of why we do and don't do things. And then from there, that's obviously where Pooja comes in and having those qualifications. So I'll let Pooja talk next, if that's okay, Jen.
Perfect.
Yes. So my story is I walked into a networking event once, and it was my first visit. And the first person I met was Ildi, because she was in charge of visitors and in charge of membership and all of that. And we started talking. So at the time, I was looking largely into why people procrastinate and why you don't get things done. And when she said to me that I make planners and I talk about how to make friends with your time, and I said to her, we should work together. You and I will make a great team. And that was just quite a flippant statement. But then just so happened that I started attending. She used to offer blueprint for life work harmony once every month. So I started attending those and slowly got hooked onto the planner myself and started. And then she said to me, can you come on a talk one time and offer what you do? And so slowly and steadily, bit by bit, it kind of built on top of each other. And then one time she said, look, I'm having a lot of trouble shifting one of my clients. Can you speak to them? I said, yeah, sure. So a couple of sessions with that client, a lot shifted and they could move forward. And from there on, we decided that we might just start sharing clients and see how that comes out. But what happened in the process is we tried to build a program together. Just to be fair, for two business owners doing separate businesses needed to be 24 sessions. Now that's daunting. And then the entire billing became a big mess, like who charges whom, how, and why, and then who invoices whom. And it became a massive accounting
Time
nightmare.
waster?
And a big time waster, and not a good customer experience either, because suddenly instead of 13 sessions or 12 sessions, we were offering them 24, and it got quite confusing as to why 24 and why do I have to pay that much, and all of those questions started coming in. Then it just made sense to create a company where it's just a one-stop shop for all clients, where they are being built by a company, but they get three of us helping them at different stages of their journey with us. So that's how it all came together. And believe it or not, the conversation started a year before we could actually solidify it. It took a while for us to all come on board and really let go of our individual needs or our individual egos, for want of a better word, to say that, no, this is a good choice for all of us. And we then finally signed papers last July. It's going to be coming up to a year soon.
Oh, wow.
If you just to bring that together, one of our core values is helping others. And by trying to do it separately, we were literally missing out on one of our core values, because in the end it became less of a help and more of a sales pitch all the time, and it just didn't feel right. So it kind of made sense to start thinking about it. And to be honest, the moment I met Pooja, I knew that I'm going to work with her on the long run, even though I didn't say it. And Kirsten sometimes, makes a joke around this, but I do have a vision on where this company will go, and sometimes I share glimpses. But when I met Pooja, I knew that she's the missing link when it comes to this, because in the end, I create, Pooja makes sure that you stick with it, and then system can put the systems and processes behind you. So we really bring three very unique areas together when we come and help a client or someone nowadays, because helping others is one of our core values.
Yeah, so it was a very customer-centric decision rather than a you-centric decision. You decided that's how you can change the world, by joining forces together. I know that this is a podcast, so not everyone can see what I can see, but obviously your little catchphrase is, change the journey, make friends with your time. So time is really, we've all got the same time. I'm not sure if there's anything else in the world that we all have the same of. But we all have the same 24 hours, and yet some people are much more productive than other people, or appear to be, I guess, at the end of the day. But I guess from a time management, what was the other word? You said you don't manage time. What do you do with time? What did you say, Ildi?
You can't manage time. You can only manage yourself. So we talk about time mindset.
Yeah, right. Okay. So time mindset type of thing. But you do talk about on your website about, changes that we can make that will give us somewhere between 2 and 6 hours back into our lives. Like if you take 6 hours, that's almost some people's working day. If you're working between 9 and 3 school hours, that's not far off 6 hours. So I'm not quite sure who is best to answer that question, but what's just one or two little ways do you think that we can actually get back our time, or get back somewhere between 2 and 6 hours?
Should I? Yeah. Look at me. Well, one of the biggest things that we found is that research shows that refocusing takes somewhere between 7 to 26 minutes. So if you really want to instantly regain time, that 1%, that can have a huge impact on your life straight away, is reducing interruptions and reducing the busyness around you can instantly give you back a lot of time. And when we say 7 to 26 minutes, we mean that often, especially in our digital world and digital age, we live in this superficial top layer, and we try to jump between different tasks, and we try to get things done at the same time, and we're trying to, well, buzzword here, multitask. So when you realize that multitasking is really a myth, and you need to allow yourself to go into a deeper state of focused work, that's when the magic really happens. And what we mean by this is that if you realize that the first phone call will always be the worst phone call you make, and by the second or third, you are able to actually tap into that skill set that makes a phone call great. Or if you realize that when you sit down to do some creative work, it takes about 10-15 minutes before you are in the zone, and you just know where to go and grab things, and the flow is there. So getting into that flow and allowing yourself to reach that state of flow is key to actually regaining time. And it's not hard. It's really just turning off distractions, turning off those notifications, putting your phone on silent, all the things that we know that we should be doing, but we never do. So I do believe that one of the things that if you really mean regaining half an hour to an hour a day without even doing much, then start using your boundaries a lot more, and stop being disrupted.
So from a systems and processes point of view, and I know, Kirsten, this is your little place of expertise or genius, what does that look like, getting back time from a systems and processes point of view? Is it turning off distractions, or is it, is there more to it than that?
I really think that, and it depends on your behavioural style too, and we'll come into that a little bit later. Probably why it is more so my genius zone is because of my behavioural style. But what I think it is really you have to acknowledge it to yourself first. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example. Is that I used to say, well, my family time is my family time, and once I pick my daughter up from school or from childcare, whatever it might be, and I've been doing this for years, is that it's a no phone call, no work zone. Yeah. So I would therefore have my phone on silent. So it would mention, the no jingles, the no interruptions. So honouring yourself or honouring the business to allow those jingles or reminders that come through that you actually do switch off and you are present in where you're at. And I think that's probably one of the very first things that needs to be identified, because if you don't allow yourself to give yourself that time, and we're all faulty of it, we all do it, I still do it every now and then, I'm not saying that I'm perfect either, then you really can't move forward. The other thing is that you have to find the right systems and processes that work truly for you. So whether it is a small business and it's a solo business owner, or do you have a number of people within your team, or do you have staff members as well? And depending on what type of business they have, Jen, there'll be different systems and processes that work. So there's things like, do they use Google Suite, G Suite, or are they using Microsoft 365? And in those programs, they do have free applications that you can use built in already. Have you actually identified what they are that might perhaps actually work for your business? Have you even explored those? So
having a time.
Exactly. And if you don't make and allow yourself to have the time to explore those, how are you ever going to move forward?
Yeah. Yeah,
and they're
exactly.
already there. They're already there on offer. They're already part of that package that perhaps you've spent time spending money on.
Yeah.
But you actually haven't explored deeper to know how to use them to the best ability. So I think that's a really good starter point. And also really exploring where you're spending your time. So depending on what that package is, perhaps that you're using, if it's an online service like we were just talking about, some people are, systems and processes more online as opposed to pen to paper, but we have another whole conversation we can explore and discuss on putting, pen to paper. There is a method in the madness, and there are statistics proved on why that is sometimes better use of how you actually move forward. So, and yeah, really understanding where you're spending that time and being able to overview and see your time and where it's getting spent is better quality of the systems that you're using. So, for example, some people like to see it in a planner or like to see it in, the old type where they say diary, whereas we choose to use planner. Do you prefer to visually see it in an online calendar, but then you've actually allowed those areas of where you're using your time to be visible?
Yeah, yeah. I know the whole turning off distractions and that sort of thing. At the moment, I'm doing my most best to write myself a book or to write a book. It's all about marketing your country, rural, regional business. And I have 3 screens and I just unplug the other 2. Because if I can see those other 2 screens, I get distracted by that popped up or this that popped up. Whereas I find if I'm just working on my laptop and it's the only screen I can see, and even if I want to Google something or I want to do some research, I won't plug the other screens in because I have probably, I don't know if I should tell Time Fixes this thing, but I probably have somewhere around 50 tabs open at all times on my different 3 screens. And so I will get distracted by one of those 50 for sure. But I guess, Pooja, like doing this question, like doing all 3 of you within this question of getting back time, like, as Ildi said earlier, you talk about changing habits. So what's your thoughts on, from a habit change point of view, of getting back, 2 to 6 hours potentially a week?
Now, one thing we have to remember that we all are creatures of habit. So what habit really is how you automatically do things without giving it conscious thought. So the first thing about understanding is where you spend time and why you do something in that particular time slot is very important to understand. And sometimes we don't give it conscious thought. So my thing is that unless you bring it into your conscious mind, you cannot change something. So the idea of saving 2 to 6 hours in a week is trying to see what is it that you can automate in your behavior or change in the behavior that is kind of automatic, that allows you to spend the time that you could otherwise use more effectively is very important. And then understanding from there on is what kind of behavior needs to be tweaked or changed or modified or adapted in order for you to then repeat that consistently in order for that to then become a habit. It's just a roundabout way of saying that you need to automate things in your mind in order for you to then concentrate on things that are far more important that might require your entire attention.
So can you
It's
give me an
almost like-
example of automating something in our mind?
So let me take an example, and I love this example. If you wake up in the morning and you go straight away to the bathroom to brush your teeth, are you actually thinking about every action you take?
No, not at all.
Exactly. So that is automating your mind. It is.
I am
automating
wondering
your
what color my
thoughts.
toothbrush is, though, because I often is that my toothbrush or is that someone else's toothbrush? But other than that, I'm just, doing it.
Other than that, you're not really using any conscious thought. So you're not thinking about how you swing your legs out of the bed. You don't think about how you're getting up. You don't think about how you're actually making your way to the bathroom. You don't think about any of that. So that's literally automating your thoughts.
Okay. So it's
And that's what
automatically,
habits
perhaps when
are.
I am writing my book, my automatic habit is just to unplug those screens. I'm not really thinking too much about it. I'm just unplugging it because I know that's how I'm going to work better because this is the time I've got allocated to do that. Yeah.
And
Okay.
the only reason why that has become automatic is because you consciously thought about how is it going to benefit, what is it going to benefit you in order for you to write the book. you have actually given a conscious thought. You've thought about, and by way of elimination, is it disconnecting the screens? Is it changing my spot from where I am? Is it me putting music on? Is it me putting on a diffuser? What is it that gets you in the zone?
Yeah.
But the automatic action hasn't happened unless you have consciously thought about it. Then to that become a repetitive action, for it to then become automatic and subconscious. If it
Pooja,
makes sense.
do you remember we had that client who in the middle of the pandemic, pretty much at the end of it, and he was saying that he's working from home, and he was struggling with getting in the zone and getting started.
Yes.
And Pooja was the one who actually suggested that what were you doing before? And
Yeah.
it turned out that he used to actually cycle to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what Pooja suggested was to go back and actually have a, before starting work at your desk, go and actually cycle for 5 kms.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a message back a couple of weeks later, and he was like, oh my God, just resetting that habit that used to get me in the zone, because by the time that he would hit work, he was already ready to go. He would get his coffee and he was in it for the whole day. So just reinstating a little piece of his original habit actually improved his productivity immensely. And this is what we say, that if you have these little automations that get you in the zone, or are things that you already do in a certain way and they serve you, we're not talking here about the things that don't serve you. We're only talking about the things that serve you, will actually help you free up brain space and actually be able to concentrate and focus on the important things.
Mine's put my shoes on. So I always put shoes on to go to work. I work from my home office on my farm, but when I put shoes on every morning, just like I would if I had to go out to an office. So that's something, probably subconsciously, that, puts me in that work mode. And something I've always done is, dress for work. I've been known to do things in pajamas, but only on weekends. But during the week, I don't necessarily put makeup on all the time anymore, because we have filters for that when we have to do videos. But certainly put my shoes on. Tristan, I'm not sure whether you're the person to answer this question, but you did bring up just earlier about behavioral styles. Now, I know that we don't want this podcast to go for 4 hours, as much as I would love to speak to you, all you ladies, for 4 hours. But can you explain to me what behavioral styles are, and how you can tell what sort of style behavior you have, or if you're not the right person, then anyone else?
I think I might hand it over to Ildi on this one. I can give you a little brief, but let's explore a little bit deeper first, and she can give you some really good insights on this one.
Thank you.
So behavioral styles. Well, what we realized, and if you remember at the beginning, I said that I always found myself back, sliding back into my old ways. What happened was I realized by talking to a wonderful lady from New Zealand, her name is Jane Albiston, and I'm sure that she would love to hear where those conversations took us. She was the first one who actually planted the seed in my brain that in the end, we are all human beings. And one of the things that probably is missing from the big picture, from the grand picture, when we're talking about time management, is the human element. We all try to take some existing good systems and just simply run with them. The reality is that you may not be wired in a way that you can just take those systems like they are and run with them. You need to adapt them to who you really are, and you need to be able to twist them and turn them so that they become yours. And this is where we say that we love helping you make friends with your own time, because in the end, it's all about understanding what's your behavioral makeup, and how can you use that in becoming more productive, and how can you take those existing tools and adapt them to what you really need. And I'll give you just one example. We all know about the Pomodoro technique, you know, the 25-minute focused work, 5-minute break. Well, the reality is that if you are a certain, if you have a certain behavioral makeup, it will not work for you. It will just simply not work for you, because your focused work time might be either a lot less or a lot more. So stopping at 25 minutes is either interrupting or you're already interrupted. If it makes sense. So this is why we came up with what we call the time-centric archetypes, and we look at before we even start working with anyone, we always do a bit of a profiling, because we find that it's so important to understand first who you are and what are your needs around productivity before you start making change. And when we start making change, that's where Pooja jumps in, and she'll help you refine that and dig a little bit even deeper in those time-centric archetypes to figure out how can you bring awareness around how do you prefer to work? Because in the end, that's it all about.
So
do
how
you
many
prefer to
archetypes
work?
are there?
There's only 4.
Oh, okay.
It's not,
There's not
too hard.
27 of us or anything like that.
No.
Well, go for it.
No, just I was just going to say that one thing that we love to say, and this is something that we always say in our workshops as well, is that we all measure time in the same way, but we don't relate to time in the same way. The relationship with time comes from your cultural background, comes from the way you've grown up around what is being said about time in your language, what is it being said by your teachers, what is being said by your peers. You always will relate to time differently. Now, let me give you an example. For those people who might be multilingual listeners, I would encourage them to go back to their mother tongue and find out how many words there really are to explain time, and whether there's any connotations behind every word of those. Because I know that in my mother tongue, there are about 4 or 5 words that just speak about time. And in every context, it would mean different. So we have to really understand that the reason why we came up with the time-centric archetypes is exactly because of this. The relationship with time is completely different for every person.
Yeah, I think I was kind of ruined with my relationship with time, working in law for 20 years. 6 minutes. Every 6 minutes had to be accounted for, and I had to attribute that to a client's bill, whether that be 1 6-minute or 26 minutes, but everything was done in 6 minutes. And I know there is a little, I can't even remember the name of it. There's a little downloadable app or something you can put on your computer, and it will literally tell you how long you've spent on a particular project or something like that. That literally makes me want to go white, to think that I have to attribute my time to something now. Even though not necessarily accountable financially, but yeah, it really does make me want to just turn myself inside out. 6 minutes, that was our thing. I'd like to know if, if law still works like that. Hopefully it doesn't.
It does.
Oh,
It still
okay.
does.
Nothing's changed in that, and
Law and accounting both.
Time is the same.
Yes, Jen, but here's a really fun trick around that. Just because you have to account every 6 minutes, it doesn't mean that you have to plan like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you can't bypass the 6 minutes. At the end of the day, you will still do it. But by planning your week ahead, by looking at how many 6 minutes fit in a productive time block, and work with what you know that works for you, you can actually take away the stigma around that 6 minutes. That's just a pure financially used perspective. So if you start looking at it from a different perspective, and if you start looking at how you really prefer to work, and how it really works for you, so that you can be productive and not circle into overwhelm and procrastination and be lost, then suddenly things change. So I think the other big trick is that we say is that you need to plan.
Yeah.
I know people are afraid of this word, and many people say to us straight away, oh, it doesn't work.
Oh, it so does.
Right? Ladies, would we agree? This is pretty much the first sentence we hear.
Yeah.
Why plan when it will not work? Well, the reality is that you're not planning whether it's going to work or not. You're planning because you want to know where do you want to spend your time. And that's a huge difference. Because in the end, if you know what your priorities are, it doesn't really matter whether the plan is perfect or not. It only matters that you will have a bit of clarity around what must fit in your week and what is negotiable in your week. And that's it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for the insights into some behavior styles for sure. Okay, so my small business owner is listening to this and thinking, yep, I need a better relationship with time. But taking a bit of a negative connotation just for a few minutes, what is not being productive really costing a small business owner, whether they work for themselves, whether they've got a team? Like there is both. Well, I don't know. I'll leave it to you. I'm assuming there is an emotional, physical, and definitely a financial cost. But who's best to answer that sort of question around what's it really costing small business owners to be unproductive
Let
and
me
not to
just
plan?
I'll let the second half of this question be answered by Ildi or Kirsten, but I'll just start off with saying is that first of all, find out what productive really means to you. If you are thinking productive means filling every minute of your every day with doing something, which is generally the definition of productive by everybody else's standard, then you are holding yourself up to an unrealistic measure, an unrealistic standard. First of all, start by defining what productivity is going to really mean to you as a business owner. What are the measurable benchmarks that you need to do in the day for you to then come back and say that I have been productive? And this has to resonate with yourself. Do not take somebody else's definition of productive and apply to yourself. That is the first step. I'll let the planning bit be answered by Ildi, because the way you can plan is by changing your mindset around it, first of all. And that's why I thought I'll take the first half of this question and then let Ildi actually tell you what steps you can really take around it.
Well, productive. The reality is that and this is why we started to look at behavioral styles and we created our time-centric archetypes, because every single time-centric archetype will relate to productivity in a different way. Unfortunately, when we say let's time block, that might make sense for a compliant person, or as we like to say, the validator, who actually has to account for every single minute, and that's the way that they work best. But it might not make sense to a time bender or an influencer, because in the end, the reality is that to these people, time does not mean a thing. It's not the most important thing. So when you are trying to get a bender to measure productivity by the tasks that they have fit in their day, you are actually robbing them of their biggest gift, which is being a motivator within a team, being the person who has bright ideas, being the person who can deal with quick changes, and being the person who is able to have variety in their day in tiny little blocks and still get things done. So you see, there's two extremes that we are talking here, and we haven't spoken about the other two. But the reality is that when it comes to productivity, understanding what productivity means to you starts with understanding how can you work the best possible way, and what is the most important to you. Because in the end, for example, a D or a dominant style will always have their eyes on the goalpost. They don't care how you get there. They have a team for that. But to them, the most important is to hit the targets, to be there, to get things in a timely fashion done. And also they truly appreciate time. So don't step on their toes with being late. But you need to know that. Because otherwise you end up not having clarity around how can you maximize not just your own time and not just your own productivity, but the productivity around you. And you will start forcing other people into working your way instead of maximizing the way that they can be the best version of themselves. So I think in my books, productivity is being and becoming the best version of yourself. Kirsten,
Beautiful.
anything you want to add to it?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I mean, we say that productivity is an understanding of your time-centric archetype. And once you understand that based on your cultural conditions, beliefs, self-awareness, then you'll truly understand where your time and your journey, has gone or where it needs to go. And I know Pooja touched a little bit on this before. So I think for people not to get to burnout, Jen, because you mentioned, is it emotional? Is it physical? What is it? I think it's a bit of a combination of everything in regards to productivity. And as both Ildi and Pooja said, it is how you identify it. So it might be completely different for you, and it might be completely different for the next person, whether it's relevant specifically to the role that they've got, or whether it's specific to the allocation of the hours that they've got, or whether it's specific to whether they have a family or not. Also, that is a huge factor on if they have children they're looking after, is there dependence within that family. So there's a lot of things that, really make up how a person would see if how they're productive and where they're productive, and what they need to do to be more productive, whether it then therefore affects their emotional or mental health as well. So I hope that helps, answer.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Such interesting points. Ladies, this has been such a great chat around time and time management and time behavior and our relationship with it and everything. But just to probably wind up, I'd really like just one tip from all of you. I know you've already given a few 1%ers here of what we can do to change and things like that, or change our relationship with time or be more productive. But if you've just got one tip to leave my beautiful listener with, what would it be? Start,
Yes,
whoever would like to start, whoever thinks quick enough on their feet to start.
I think the first tip is actually go away and think about where you think you're not managing your time best. That's my tip. Because you have to be honest with yourself. Once you're honest with yourself, then you can do something about it.
Pooja, go.
I would say that absolutely go and define what it means for you to be productive. What would a productive day really look like for you? Is it giving undivided attention to your business for a period of time, or doing or finding that sweet spot where if you need variety, are you giving yourself that permission to have variety in the day? What it is that you want to work as, and how do you want to work in the day, and be comfortable with that fact. Because if you're not comfortable in that fact and you're holding yourself to somebody else's idea of what a day should look like, then you're already setting yourself up for failure. So go and really define that for yourself, and then become comfortable with that definition. So being comfortable with the uncomfortable is the first step.
Beautiful.
I think
Ildi to finish.
I'll build on this a little bit more. I think please stop saying that you're bad at time management. The reason why I say it is because you're the only person who always listens to you is yourself.
Mhm.
So every time you will say that you are bad at time management, you are going to believe that you are bad at time management. So stop saying that. Instead, start looking at how can you be better at defining your own productivity. And if you start looking at that, you'll find the solutions and you'll find the answers. And if you find that you struggle with it, then you have us here. We're happy to help. But if in saying that, it's not everything a sales pitch. If you find us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, our podcast, all these places, I think we're more than generous when it comes to tips and tricks and ideas and thoughts. Please hit us up, ask us questions. We love good interaction, and we're always here to help. And we're passionate about helping everyone around us understand how important it is to have a healthy time mindset. Because good productivity starts with starting to believe that every single one of us can be productive, and every single one of us can make friends with their time.
Yeah, beautiful. Kirsten, to finish up, if my listener wanted to get in contact with you, where's the one place that you would like to send them?
Well, look, we'd absolutely love them to check out our website. It is thetimefix.com.au, or as Ildi mentioned, we play on almost all the social media platforms. So check us out. We have a LinkedIn page. It's The Time Fix. We have Instagram and Facebook. So we'd love for you to follow us and send us a little message and see if there's anything that we can help or answer those questions for you. Then we'd love to be able to help you with those.
Beautiful. And I will, of course, have those links in the show notes. What's the podcast called? Because obviously my listener is a podcast listener. They might want a brand new podcast in their ears. What's the podcast called?
Very
Have a
boring,
guess.
Jen. It's The Time Fix.
Oh. Very on brand, ladies. Very on brand.
We don't want to confuse people. The Time Fix for everything.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, ladies, for giving up your time today. This has been a great chat, and we will stay in touch.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. Greatly
Thanks.
appreciated. Thank you.
So what did you think? 4 people on one interview. I think it went well. I was a little worried, if I'm totally honest, but dealing with professionals, I really had nothing to stress about. And I really hope they inspired you to think about your time differently, or your relationship with your time differently. Of course, all the links to the Time Fix are in the show notes, which can be found at all the W's, socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/241. So head over there and check them all out. If you've got questions or you've got thoughts, then, join my Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group. If you aren't a member in there already, or even, I know Kirsten is a member in that group. Sorry, Ildi, and sorry, Pooja, I'm just not quite sure if you are members, although you are welcome to become members, but I know Kirsten is. So if you've got any time questions, tag Kirsten in them, and I'm sure that she would be more than happy to answer any of your questions in that Facebook group. If you loved this episode and found it valuable, 2 things you can do to support me and my businesses. 1, share it with someone else who you think might need a better relationship with their time, or would get some gold from listening to this episode. And number 2 is you could leave me a rating and a review. If you can do that in wherever you're listening to this podcast. I know, not every platform you can do that in, but it is my goal to reach more people with this podcast, and I'd love you to help me achieve that. Thank you so much in advance for that. Otherwise, I'll see you next week for episode 242. Thanks again to BL Management for sponsoring the podcast. Don't forget, you can find out about their courses, including the Resilience First Aid course on the 18th and 19th of May. You can contact their office at blmc.com.au, or of course, head to their website, blmc.com.au. But in the meantime, let's hang out on social. If we're not already, you'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.